embrace wholeheartedly and ensure you continue with our work. Rainfall should not be an excuse really for any ordinary Ugandan, because we know that this is a rainy season, so you have to be up and prepared for the game. Once again, I'm Robert Chirabonyonitono, sitting in for my colleague Jagenda Semakula, who is on other official duties. Well, today we are going to be discussing an issue that is very interesting. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. You must recall that it was in 2015, around there when Uganda had the presidency of the United Nations Assembly, when member states adopted, that is, the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, these we focus more on 17 as a target. With me in studios, I'm blessed to have gentlemen from various organizations that push for these sustainable goals to be put in place and ensure that no one is left behind. And with me, I have Martin Senkungu, an economist, Office of the Prime Minister. You're most welcome to the show, Martin.
Thank you very much.
I also have, that is Moses Nsoba, the Executive Director, Non-Governmental Organizations Forum. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
And on Zoom, I'm having, that is Dr. Dimitri Fosville, who is with us. Doctor, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be with you this morning.
Okay, well, with a team of these gentlemen, we are going to be looking at, first and foremost, these Sustainable Development Goals. How are we going to localize them for Uganda as a country to ensure that no one is left behind? And of course, our topic this morning is Uganda's new SDGs Roadmap 2021-2025, transforming global aspirations into local priorities, leaving no one behind. How do we transform these, most at a time now when we have the pandemic? But very importantly to note and to also understand, where I want to first of all bring in Mr. Senkungu, is for us to understand how we are going to first of all ensure that we localize and leave nobody behind when it comes to these SDGs.
Thank you very much, presenter. As you've already mentioned in your opening remarks, indeed, Uganda joined the rest of the world in 2015 in adopting the global agenda, that is the SDGs. And this global agenda was reduced in 17 goals, and that's what we call the SDG goals. So we are saying that how can we, as Uganda, join the world in attaining sustainable development, right? Development that we can kind of be proud of for now and in the future. That is what we are having as the thrust of SDGs. So SDGs, as you've already mentioned, Uganda was a front runner, right? Uganda, we held the presidency when we were passing these SDGs, and by then we had His Excellency Sam Kutesa in the presidency, and we adopted them. So we are setting the stage as a country in ensuring that we kind of focus our experience as the country in ensuring that we actually bring sustainable development, one, to the people and also to the country at large. So in terms of localization, we are saying, can we speak better to the people, right? How can we involve them into this development agenda? Because development is not only a role for government, but we are doing things for the people. Because ideally SDGs are telling us, all UN member states, that can we do service delivery that is impacting on the people on the grassroots. That is what we are having in these 17 goals. That is why when you look at them, they are all speaking, where are we ending poverty? Are we ending hunger? Are we promoting good health? Are we promoting education? And those are the aspects that actually speak to the common man. That is what we call sustainable development that we can be proud of as a country. So in terms of localization, we are going back down to the people, ensuring that service delivery is impacting in those areas, ensuring that actually the social aspects, the livelihoods of the people are actually motivated and uplifted in all other aspects. So broadly, Those are the things that we are talking about today. Development that is sustainable.
Maybe briefly, let's look at these goals, maybe just a category, you list them, and of course the top priorities among the 17, which we aim to have achieved by 2030.
Yes, 2030, there are many, 17, but then ideally, you know, government's approach has been first and foremost ending poverty, ensure that people's livelihoods are actually uplifted. That is why the many programs we are having, Operation Wealth Creation, now we are having the parish development model. Are we impacting on the livelihoods of the people? Secondly, ensuring that people have something to eat. A hungry person is an angry person. So end hunger at the end of the day. Thirdly, improve their education status, right? That is why we are ensuring that people are provided with free education, the universal primary education and also universal secondary education. Thirdly, are they having clean water and sanitation? All these things impact on each other, and as I mentioned, these SDGs are interlocking, right? One contributes to the other. Are we getting it? That is why we are ensuring that all these things, they are a priority. Though we have front runners, but we are saying that ideally at the end of the day, we have to play a big role in ensuring that we touch one or two the other. Yes.
Well, Moses, when we look at this ambition of ensuring 2030, at least we have transformation, lives of people, these goals impact on them. Here came in COVID-19, the pandemic. First, are these still achievable? Is it still possible to leave no one behind by 2030 if you look at the SDGs?
Thank you, Kirabo. With or without COVID, as a country, our commitment towards achieving sustainable goals remains firm. With COVID, there are certainly a number of challenges. As many people say, COVID-19 divides as it multiplies. What that means, every time the virus is multiplying and affecting more people, it is dividing. And dividing, it means that the gap between those who have and those who do not have continues to increase. So that's a given. And COVID-19 has put our healthcare systems in trouble. We had a time when it was, people were being taken from hospital to hospital looking for oxygen. For the last 2 years, our schools have been closed, and therefore that has a major effect on the quality of education, which is one of the SDGs. Our economy as a country has actually been also thrust into disarray. We've taken on more debt because we need to ensure that our people are healthy. But that said, it's important to underscore that the commitment that we as a country provided at the time when the president of this country, when we were the presidency of the UN General Assembly, we were the midwives of the SDGs. And our commitment is that, yes, we want to see our people through to the 2030 agenda. We want to make sure that no one is left behind, because and we're wanting to make sure that we're reaching those furthest first. That remains our commitment, with whether there is a global public health emergency like COVID-19 or not. Now, how are we going to do that is perhaps the question that begs the answer. One, the different SDGs, we have 17 SDGs, we have 169 targets and over 230 indicators. But I think about only 203 indicators are applicable to Uganda. And we are on the road to that. And so as a country, we remain committed, whether it's education, whether it's taking people out of poverty, making sure that everybody is food secure. That remains a commitment. Yeah.
Well, that remains our commitment. But also one thing that really comes to my mind, Moses, before I move on to Doctor, when we talk about sustainable, that means that with funding, without funding, the local communities, the people there can still carry on the education. The people there can still carry on activities aimed at fighting poverty. When we see most of these things, the SDGs that have been already integrated into Uganda, many of these have a financial element that at pulling out, sustainability may not be achieved. How are we factoring in this?
Let me just go slightly behind that. You know, the SDG framework builds on the Millennium Development Goal, the MDGs. The cardinal difference between the MDGs and SDGs was that the MDGs perhaps focused on the not well-to-do countries, the poor countries, the developing countries. Now, the beauty with the SDGs is that this is for all countries. And any government is interested in ensuring that its people get out of poverty, whether it's the US, whether it's Uganda, or any country. Any country is actually interested to make sure that people have food secure. So it cuts across the board. It's true that for us to be able to deliver on these SDGs and making sure that at the time of 2030, we say, yes, we have actually delivered our people. We have actually delivered our people through these SDGs. It requires money. And you know, when you look through the different SDGs, and perhaps this SDG 17 on building on partnerships, we are going to commit ourselves as a country, committing ourselves as a country to work with the different partners to be able to harness the resources that we need to address all these different issues of providing decent jobs, or providing the health infrastructure, or providing the educational infrastructure. So we are, as a country, committed to that. And as civil society organizations, which is my constituency, as working with the Uganda National NGO Forum, is that we are working with the citizens. Because at the center of the delivery of the SDGs are the people. The citizens are going to be. So we actually wanting to see how can we work with citizen formations, citizen clusters, citizen groups, for people to be able to attain economic self-sufficiency. So what my colleague talked about, you know, the policy development model and any other of these different frameworks of the government. The idea for us as citizen formations, or as NGOs, or as civil society organizations, is to be able to ensure that we are accompanying the government in ensuring that there is economic sufficiency. People have the livelihood, and that livelihood is to make sure that they can then be able to have economic sufficiency, which is actually talking about the resources that we need to be able to deliver on the SDGs.
This will take me to Dr. Dimitriou, where we want to understand what is this localization all about when we talk about the SDGs? Is it just another media campaign? Second, one would wonder if they're already integrated into national policies, then why are we talking about localization at this particular moment?
Of course, thank you to UBC and our colleagues for raising this very, very important topic about localization of the Sustainable Development Goals. To answer your question, I believe whether it remains just another campaign or it will be transformed into a substantive factor of local development depends on us, on all of us, the government, local governments, civil society, the non-government sector, the private sector, which is also very important, as well as the development partners and the UN system. Of course, today I'm representing the UN Capital Development Fund, but to an extent, I'm also talking on behalf of the UN system. And last year, the Right Honorable Prime Minister launched the new UN Sustainable Cooperation Framework for Uganda. It was deliberately launched after the launch of NDP 3, so that we make sure that the two blueprints are aligned and that the UN can do its best to support the achievement of Uganda's development goals. And of course, when we think in broader terms about alignment at the national and local level, there appears to be some gap between how the SDGs are operationalized at the national level and NDP3, and the understanding and their operationalization at the local level. Not only sometimes we face a situation when central government officials do not see much need in localization of the SDGs, but sometimes I also encounter a lack of understanding on the part of local government officials who say that whatever we do is to serve the community, it's already a contribution to the SDGs, so why do we really need to adapt those global or national SDG targets to the local level? And our answer is that to be able to ensure that what you are doing on a day-to-day basis as the local government does result into actual improvements and into achievement of the SDG goals, you need to adapt those goals to the local level. You need to be able to track your progress towards those goals, and this is what we are doing as the UN system, working with a number of partners, including, of course, the SDG Secretariat, the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the Ministry of Local Government, and others, to help local governments to come up with their localized SDG achievement plans.
Well, thank you, Doctor. He says the more they're inclusive, I think he's more talking about inclusion to ensure that it doesn't remain at the epitome, but rather sells through to the bottom person. Now here I bring in Senkungu to better understand what are some of these challenges. Because when you look at our National Development Plan, most of these 17 are already there. When you look at all government strategies in terms of fighting poverty, improving health, inclusion for all, one would think that actually this is what government is doing.
Yes.
So having ratified or being part of other countries globally that are going to push for this, we're already there. So to me, we are just improving what we have. That means we already have challenges. What could be some of these challenges?
Thank you very much. You know, localization means we are going local. We are going down, right? When you go down, that means you're not staying up. Now, when you go down, you really have to ensure that you speak the right language to the people whom you are targeting, right? And I think that has been one of the main challenges. Element of communication. Are we communicating well to the people that we are addressing? That is why you find that the president has been a little bit emphatic and saying that if we are to kickstart development, we have to target the household first. If someone has land around him and is growing something, can we do more of mechanization than subsistence? That is where development is going to start from. And it answers even the aspects of saying that that is development that you will have today and tomorrow. So the aspect of communication is critical. Dimitri has talked about elements of tracking. So if we are to track this development, we have to have good indicators. Are we having the right indicators at the local level? Is the question for us. Yes? So at the end of the day, when you look at these SDGs, right? Yes, we have the indicators, but then it's not one size fits for all. All indicators speak differently to different countries. That means we have to customize them to our local local setting. Yes. So the issue of indicators also plays in, right? We have to ensure that actually we are tracking well. So the element of tracking and data collection has been one of the key aspects of challenges, right? Then the element of financing. How are we involving the private players, right? The private sector. The NDP3 was built around ensuring that private sector is really engaged in the development process, right? Now it is back to us to assess ourselves. How are we involving the private sector? The president has the the presidential investors roundtable, where he engages the private people, right, in the development process. Can we do that at local level, right? If someone is actually kind of having a retail shop, right? If someone is having a nursery school at his local level, a saloon, right? How is that speaking to the development agenda of his local setting? Are you getting me? So, private sector involvement is also critical. It has been one of the gaps, but then I think now that we are heading into the second roadmap, we need to emphasize it. So 3 critical issues: communicate better, right? Ensure private sector involvement, right? And ensure that we have adequate funding. Yes, you see, funding may not be enough because there is no money which is enough. But can we start with what we have, right? Start with what we have, then the players will join us. Yes.
I like the element of monitoring and indicators here as one of the ways we can know if you're moving in the right direction. I think this has been the greatest challenge of government initiatives. Even when you look at localizing the SDGs, one of the hindrances, we can't know how far we've gone, we can't know which impact this has created. So at this time around, what avenues are you using to ensure proper tracking of success?
You see, the good thing is that we said that SDGs are localized in the National Development Framework, right? That means that as we implement government services, in one way or another, we are realizing SDGs. Are you getting? So, what we have to do is to ensure that our statistical framework, right, is tuned to ensuring that we capture issues that are speaking to SDGs. Because they are not going to be different. No, we're not having a different setting. We're not going to have a new development, kind of a new NDP because we have SDGs. No, we are actually bringing SDGs into NDP 3. So we are going to ensure that actually we progressively customize, that is critical, progressively customize SDG indicators to speak to the national statistical indicators, right? And then ensure that we actually cascade these indicators to speak to individual districts and local governments, right? Because an aspect that is affecting Kasese district local government may not be the one as affecting Karamoja. If it is an issue of hunger in Karamoja, how do we customize its indicators to track proper nutrition and proper, well-being, food security in that region? So we are saying that we need to develop and cascade customized indicators in the various regions.
Maybe before I go to Dr. Dumtri, let me bring in here the man from the NGO Forum. One of the challenges we always face is leaders at the grassroots really understanding what these specific goals are, and of course bringing them on board. It is easier at international level. It is easier at the central level, Office of the Prime Minister, the NGOs, the elites. But go down, much as these are visible and they're within their communities, but them appreciating their role in fostering this localization. What initiatives do we have this time around?
I think for the civil service sector in this country, from the very beginning, for us, we took on the aspect of localization very seriously. And one of the things that we actually started was a campaign which we call Tonda Kamabega. Literally meaning, do leave no one behind. And that's a campaign that we continue to roll out as a civil society organization. That we have a CSO core reference group, which is about 100+ organizations that come together, and they're actually working on different aspects of localization, taking the message down to the people. Now, in terms of challenges, one of the challenges, like he did mention, but I expound on that a bit on the communication, is that we as a country, we are a multi-ethnic country with multiple tribes. Now, you do not want to leave the SDG to be, in English, to be, full of development jargons. So actually, as civil society, under the Leave No One Behind, the Tonde Kamabega campaign, what we did is to try and translate this in as many languages as possible. I think we've been able to do that in about 11 or 17 languages. But that's still not enough. I mean, we don't want, okay, when you have translated into Runyoro Kitara or Runyankore Rukiga or Lusoga or Uganda, that's enough. We would like to see a situation where you go to every tribe and people can actually be able to read the text. They can actually be able to see the pictorial in their languages. So that would then ease the challenge of communication, because then this is translated into languages that people understand. So that is one way, and as a civil society, we continue to work very closely with the SDG Secretariat on the aspect of localization through the Tonde Kamabega campaign. But equally important, maybe that to underscore, is the issue of how do we ensure that we are working with the district local governments? Because under our decentralization policy, the power is actually with the people down there, the local government at the subnational level. And so when we talk about localization, we actually wanting to see how best we can actually work with these local governments. We will know right now, after the 2021 general elections, we have literally a new crop of district councillors. And these need to be trained. So the training needs to get away from the national level. We are training our local councillors. They understand what this is about. How can they be able to infuse and integrate the SDG work into their own programs? So that is another aspect that we as civil society organizations, we are pressing a very high premium on. How do we work with these local governments, training local councillors? And maybe we could even take it up in terms of addressing the challenge and making sure there is localization, even go a step further. How can we ensure that the aspect of the SDGs is infused in not only in the work plans, but in the performance contracts of the district technical leaders, so that if we're going to assess the cow, or we are going to assess whatever technical stuff at the district level, we are able at the end, as part of the performance contract, we are able to say we are able to see how did you deliver on the SDGs. So all these things, as civil society, we are gazing downwards, we are looking downwards, we are giving it a contextual flavor of working with the citizens, of working with the wananchi, or the so-called Omuntu wa wansi, because that's what we think gives this the localization of going down to the people. Tonde Kamabega is the campaign.
I love the word Tonde Kamabega. No one should be left behind. These 17 SDGs are meant at transforming everybody. And it is very important if they are localized, that people appreciate and people know that this is the direction at which we are moving as a country. Well, when we return after this break, I'll be having Dr. Dimitri telling us more, talking about financing of the SDGs in terms of localizing them. Where and how best can we have these funds for sustainability of these programs? Let's first go for this short break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Vaccinated today so we can get closer to the normal way of life. Echa COVID-19 chija kugwa.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh my Uganda.
I know with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey mama,
My Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda. Nikukune, my Uganda. Amari, alemira, my Uganda,
nyowe nikugonza.
my Uganda,
Amina ngojo, Amina ngojo.
my Uganda.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. It is still Good Morning Uganda Extra, and we are looking at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted in 2015. That is, if you remember very well, when our own country, Uganda, was at the helm of the leadership of the United Nations Assembly, and we chose direction for the world or member states by 2030. And all these aim at fighting and reducing poverty, but can be condensed in three major aspects. That is the people, peace, and partnership. This is how we look at them universally. What are they aiming at? Improving the lives of the people, promoting peace and partnership. With me in studios, I still have the colleagues. That is Mr. Senkungu, an economist, office of the Prime Minister, and also I have Moses, who happens to be, that is heading the UNGO forum in this country, and of course Dr. Dimitri, who is at the headquarters of the United Nations, who is with us this morning. Well, Doctor, like I said before the break, let's look at the element of financing these SDGs in terms of localizing them, because one of the biggest obstacles has been issues of money. That at one time, if local governments don't understand that how best they can propel these SDGs, even when finances are not there, because you know no money is enough, but also how best do we come up with initiatives aimed at propelling this over and over a time.
Thank you so much. As we economists say, money is a scarce commodity, and this is certainly true. But let me take a step back and talk about the aspect of SDG localization, which my colleagues have mentioned briefly, and this is setting targets at the local level, and those targets need to be translated not only in the local languages, but they also need to be translated and presented in the terms that is understandable to local people. Like how many less poor people the district will have in 5 or 10 years? How many less hungry people the district will have in a certain period of time? And so on and so forth. And this stage, defining your targets, is extremely important for the next one, which is about financing the SDG achievement. Because if you don't know what you're going to finance, then it's very difficult to decide about your financing envelope. Of course, financing SDGs is intimately linked to the broader issue of local government finance. You may know that over the past 10 years, we have seen a drop in the share of local government finance in the total public budget from about 18% to about 12-13% currently. And this is even more when you think about it in real terms, adjusted for inflation. Then the actual drop is about 8%. And this is not a good trend in itself, but it is further exacerbated by the fact that local governments are becoming more and more dependent on the central government in the terms of the type of finance that they are getting. Over 50% or 60% of local government budgets are for salaries, just for salaries to their staff. And only 6% of their budgets are for capital investments. Whereas the discretionary space of local governments, that is the space where they can take decisions on fiscal allocations according to their priorities rather than to the priorities which were determined by the central government, is shrinking further. And just about 10% of the current fiscal transfers from the central government are discretionary transfers. The rest of it is earmarked, and local governments cannot do anything about those transfers. They more or less serve as a cashier's desk. So what we really need is a mind change. I know that this term is overused, but we need a movement from both sides of the equation. On the central government side, we need the central government to recognize the potential and role of local governments in financing local development.
What are some Doctor, what are some of these initiatives that you would advise these local governments? Because rightly said, you've emphasized that they are so much dependent on the central government. Now, when we look at these SDGs, what opportunities or what initiatives do they provide for them to ensure they can improve this?
Well, you know, first of all, I wouldn't place the entire burden on local governments only. I will talk about the opportunities for local governments, but let me again emphasize the obvious point. The fiscal space of local governments ultimately depends on how much authority and autonomy the central government cedes to them. And that's very clear. Without the involvement of the central government, without them creating additional opportunities for local governments, we cannot move forward. The situation will remain what it is. Now, talking about the funding opportunities for local governments, as my colleagues have already mentioned, the SDG agenda centers on a very collaborative and participatory approach that includes the contributions from the government, from the private sector, from communities, as well as from the development partners. We have been working with a number of other institutions to change the regulatory environment for local governments to be able to engage in more substantive debt finance. As you know, at the moment, there is a ceiling when it comes to local government borrowing at 25% of their annual revenues. And given that this amount is really minuscule, at the district level, it's between 3 to 4% of the entire budget. It's a bit more in municipalities, but still not that much. And considering that SDGs is a long-term program, it serves not only the current generation, but also the future generation, it makes sense economically to tap into capital markets, to tap into financial markets to be able to finance the SDG agenda. The other very productive opportunity is engagement with the private sector. And these engagements can take various forms, from different concessional agreements and kind of more formal PPPs to a broad type of partnership and cooperation between the private sector and the public sector.
I'll be returning to you shortly. I love the fact that you're emphasizing partnership, you're emphasizing these local governments to know that actually the ball is in their hands right now, to ensure that these don't remain only at the top, but they really transform them into various programs that are integrated and include the SDGs. But then this will bring me back to the economist that we have here. What key information do you have for the local governments, the leadership watching this program right now, when it comes to localization of the SDGs?
Thank you very much. You see, when we launched the second roadmap on 15th September, it presented us with new opportunities, right? New opportunities on how to further deepen the development agenda at the local level. What am I saying? Right now, we are saying that can we popularize more? Because that's one of the key objectives of the SDGs. Let's popularize more these SDGs. As I mentioned earlier, production begins at the local man, right? These are the people who are actually producing the food. Are they getting the right seeds? That's a concern of the local government. Are they having good roads to take their food to the markets? That is a concern of the local government, right? Are they having maybe the information, right? That is the key issue that we are looking at here. And then other aspects may play in, but then those are the things that actually we have to first ensure at the local government level. That's why we are having the 5 broad elements in the roadmap. Things that are speaking about reporting and monitoring, things that are speaking about financing, as you've already mentioned with Dr. Dimitri, things that are talking about, yes, communication, right? Things about data collection, right? All those aspects need to be now more thought about at the local level. And those are the things that I think not only have to be at our discussion at central government, but also to be better understood at the local government level. Right now, what we are doing is to ensure that we have focal persons within the local governments, focal persons on SDGs. And the beauty with it is that they are going to be planners, the people who are going to manage the planning system. So it will be easier for us, as they are generating their planning documents, to kind of put a lens on SDGs. Yes? If we are talking about school-going children, how are they contributing to the development process? Are we reducing on the dropouts? Critical, right? Then that means we can better track our progress at the end of the day. Yes? Health centers, are we reducing on the epidemic? How are we impacting, right? What is our response in terms of mitigating all those impacts at the local level? If we are talking about disasters, our response time in terms of kind of bringing the services closer to the people. That is the language that should be at local government level. Yes.
Moses, let's look at the various stakeholders, more so now the civil society organizations which you head. What are you bringing on table?
I think for us what we are bringing on the table and what we think is very, very critical in the localization agenda, first of all, is to ensure that we are working on, with the central government to improve local government financing. Because one of the challenges that we do have is the decreasing local government financing, and yet under the localization agenda, we are actually saying, oh no, these local governments need to be in charge of this, need to be in charge of this. So we call upon the government as civil society organizations that this is an area where the government needs to pay attention, ensure there is a proper local government financing. So that's a bit of work that we do as civil society organization. The other is to make sure that we are putting the torch on the 3 SDG accelerators. Under COVID-19, as we get out, and we're sure getting out of COVID-19, once everybody gets vaccinated, is that we're going to be building back better. And if we're going to be building back better, then we want to ensure that the 3 aspects of which we call the SDG accelerators, that there is attention to governance, there is attention to the environment, there is attention to industry. Now, if any local government was able to apply itself to these 3 SDG accelerators. You know, in a way, either around aspects of governance and aspects of the environment and aspects of industry. In one way or another, we would be enabling us to move swiftly towards the 2030 agenda in terms of making sure that we actually, you know, when we reach that crossing line of 2030, that we can actually cross the line and say, yes, we've been able to ensure that we lifted our people out of poverty, we've been able to address the issues of education, issues of health and issues of gender and all those. Just like you said, yeah, that we've been able to address the issue that affect the people, that affect peace and aspects of partnership. So as civil society organizations, what we're bringing on the table is working with the government on aspects of local government financing, aspects of governance, aspects of environment, making sure that, you know, we're able to address issues of environment and aspects of industry. And all these actually, in one way or another, these 3 SDG accelerators, in one way or another, they find their space in the NDP3, in the National Development Plan. Whether we're talking about agro-industrial processing, whether we're talking about mineral development, all these, when you look at the National Development Plan with all its 18 priorities, they can, you know, you can actually cluster each of these 17 SDGs under each. So if the government is committed to delivering on the NDP3, which it is, then in a way we are committed to delivering on the SDGs. Yeah.
Well, I love the accelerators. That is governance, the environment, which is a very critical issue here, where we are saying many people are messing up with the environment, and anyway, that they end up in absolute poverty. And also industrialization. I think if we focus at that, then we are good to go. Well, time is not so much on our side. I'll go to Dr. Dimitri that have his final remarks regarding that is the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals as we move to hit that deadline of 2030.
Thank you, and many thanks to my colleagues for their very informative contributions. As part of the UN system, we are very much supportive of the process of the SDG localization, and we see the value of the process in enabling local governments and local communities in very close consultation, and of course with the support of the central government. And let me stress once again the criticality of that support, so to enable them to make real progress towards the achievement of specific and customized SDG targets at the local level. Together with other UN organizations, we are contributing on different fronts and on different issues to make this happen. As I have mentioned, we are working with local governments to extend additional finance in the context of the development initiative for northern Uganda. We are focusing on the northern region in particular. A number of governments are getting a local government excellence grant from UNCDF with the support of the European Union. And that grant is also supposed to be invested in economic projects, in revenue generating projects, and in partnership with the private sector, so that local governments can develop that expertise and the skills of engaging with the private sector. I would also like to stress the aspect of digitization and application of digital solutions for governance, including financing the SDGs. We have been working with the World Bank and with private fintech companies to support digitization of local revenue collection and reporting, in a number of local governments, and to make sure that the potential of local governments, the revenue potential, is fully realized. So we are committed to continuing this work, and of course we are very happy to see the NGO Forum and the SDG Secretariat as our partners.
Well, I want to thank you so much. That is Dr. Dimitri Pozdevil for having found time and given us an insight, most when it comes to the financing of local governments in realization of the SDGs by 2030. Now I'll turn to the gentlemen in the studios and I'll be having your last remark. And I'll begin with Senkungu. When you talk about localization, ensuring that we remove or transform the global aspirations into local priorities, what are your final remarks?
Thank you very much. I would like to emphasize that our country focus first is to ensure that these the country is transformed from a peasantry to a modern and prosperous country, right? That is our true north right now. So in localization, we have to speak that language to the people. At the Office of the Prime Minister, we are developing a localization manual, right? And that localization manual will guide this localization process in ensuring adequate reporting, in ensuring adequate monitoring, and also tracking aspects of financing. As Dimitri said, yes, we need to ensure that the private people are brought on board, as well as the CSOs, because not all resources are with government, but also with the other partners. Then we have to also ensure that actually localization is better understood on all the development processes, the value chain processes of all aspects. So for me, I think, yes, once we have all these aspects in play, then localization can be better domiciled in the working plans, in the budgeting tools, and also in the reporting frameworks. Thank you very much.
Finally, that is the man from the non-governmental organization forum, that is Moses. Let me have your final remarks. I'm also knowing that you have a time frame, and I know non-government organizations are so good at pushing for deadlines, and you work basically on ensuring that you have a time frame, and that time frame will meet the target.
I think for me, really, when it comes to the commitment that of the 2030 agenda and making sure that we are able to deliver on all the 17 SDGs, 169 targets, I think let me put it this way. I think the delivery of the SDGs is like hugging a baobab tree. You can't do it alone. The baobab tree is usually very huge. So if you want to hug it, you have to hold hold hands as people. And I think what this means, that while the responsibility of the delivery on the SDGs rests on government, it's important, it's incumbent that government is able to hold hands with civil society, is able to hold hands with the private sector, is able to hold hands with the development partners, is able to hold hands with the citizens themselves. So we are together, when we hold hands, we can actually be able to embrace the baobab tree. We can actually be able to deliver on the 2030 agenda, which we committed to. And I think one way that we can actually be able to do that is that we are also able to address the 13 bottlenecks which the president of this country addressed the African Union on. And these cut across a number of things, ranging from our unresponsive public services, poor infrastructure, and aspects of underdevelopment of agriculture, just to mention a few. But I think if we are able to deliver on that and then hold hands with all the different sectors, not only are we going to build back better after COVID, but we're also going to be able to deliver on the 2030 agenda.
Well, I want to thank you so much. That is Marvin Senkungu, economist from the Office of the Prime Minister. Thank you for your time. And of course, that message of, very importantly, these are people-centered, and we must take responsibility to ensure that we achieve them by 2030. I also want to thank Moses Isoba, that's the Executive Director, the Non-Governmental Organization Forum of Uganda, and not to forget, that is Dr. Dimitri Pozdevil, who has been with us. Thank you so much. That is from the UN Head Office. for the time you've given us. Well, we must ensure that come 2030, we have been able to localize, that is the Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them being elimination of poverty, where we leave nobody behind. As we look at the three elements of these SDGs, which is people, partnerships, and peace. Together we can. Let's hold hands, let's embrace this, as long as we promote accountability, and we know that what was agreed in 2015 must see the light of day, but that is only if we are able to localize it effectively. Have a lovely day. God bless you. Remember, COVID is around. Go and take your jabs. Go for those shots so that we fight that is severe illness, hospitalization, and death. We can go back to normal if we are all vaccinated. God bless you. See you tomorrow, same time.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.